Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. It's time for episode 8 of The Last Admiral, part 3 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga. Today we will continue on with the Oracle Stone chapter with Lord Gax on page 61 from the last paragraph. On this day in history, 1928, Bing Crosby records Old Man River. In 1935, Amelia Earhart began her solo flight across the Pacific. In 1962, the new B-52H super bomber lands at a Madrid air base after completing a 12,519-mile-long flight. Some notable celebrity birthdays include Aja Naomi King, Amanda Peet, Ben Crenshaw, and Mary J. Blige. Okay, we'll continue on with our reading. Go back a paragraph or so. The last one. Okay. Lord Gax is preparing to use the Oracle Stone to divine the future if he can. Okay. Focusing his mind, he summoned the Oracle Stone. Instantly, he felt the rock meet his palm as if placed there by some unseen servant. Removing the egg-shaped stone, he held it between his hands and stood for a moment, feeling its weight. Maybe 20 pounds, it was identical in size and shape to the eggs of the tall wild birds of Shamroon. Only this one was petrified blue and streaked through with white quartz, as if a lightning bolt had formed it. Placing it on a cloth cushion on his desk, like those used to hold brass bells. He rested his hands on either side of it. The stone was strangely cool to the touch, and remained so regardless of its environment. Looking inward with his mind's eye, he reached through himself and into the stone. "What secrets will you tell me?" he asked as the power of the stone began to take hold of him. Wielding the stone required tremendous willpower and sapped the strength of those who demanded too much of its power. Each vision bore an unknown cost to the spirit and the body, for certainly a mortal's glimpse of the future was taboo. The farther ahead that one looked in time, the greater the cost to body and soul, and the less reliable the vision. Lord Guy had barely touched the oracle before the spectre of death had risen. Acklon entered his quarters as he always did. Hanging up his jacket, his parched lips longed for their first touch of hot tea. His room was neither the largest on board nor the most spacious. The physicians and the first mates were considerably larger, but his was closest to the helm, deck, and his active command. His bunk was a hammock, dangling from the port ceiling, and several cubby-holes lined the wall beside it, jammed to their limits with scrolls and books on a variety of subjects. His floor-fastened desk was broad and well carpeted of chestnut. Of chestnut. 2 oil lamps hung from the rafters above it and shed a soft glow upon its surface. An inkwell, 4 feather pens, and his favorite mug rested there. Along the right-hand wall stood a small cast-iron wood stove, made in the shape of a laughing dolphin, its mouth the door and its tail the flue. A day's supply of wood and coal was stored beside it, and his wood-handled teapot was at the ready and blessedly full of water. Walking across the varnished deck planks of his room, he bent low to start the fire. Sadly, his tired mind had forgotten about the dangers, sorely desiring for just a moment's respite and some tea. Mournfully, for lurking above him among the rafters was the most poisonous creature on Tempest, the Guer Aracul, also known as the assassin's spider. Dropping down without a sound, it landed on Acklon's back and delivered its deadly bite to his exposed neck. He would have lurched with the sudden sting, but so fast was the poison, and so near to his spine, that his eyes only widened before his body went still. Its job complete, the assassin spider casually lowered itself from his victim upon a strand of silk and headed for the rat hole where it had made its entrance. His master would be pleased. A chance meeting with death. School was only weeks away, and Derek had yet to complete his stepfather's work. Ever curious, he explored every magical wonder in their basement and read every book in their library dealing with necromancy and the plane of death itself. That is, every book except for one, and that volume was the most perilous of them all, the Vellum Obitus. I must not be disturbed this night, he told Wraith. No matter what you hear, do not distract me by opening the library door. And tell Vlad and every member of the house that under no circumstances is this room to be opened before sunrise. I will guard the door myself, young master. Thank you, Wraith. In preparation, he had eaten lightly, observed his bodily needs, and taken ample sleep. He had meditated and rested his eyes in a lightless room. Now there was nothing to do but attempt the reading. Removing the chain from his neck, he produced the key. Inserting it into the Obitus's lock, a needle hidden inside of it pricked his finger. Filling the skull's maw with his blood, the volume grew and the clasp opened. Adjusting his seat, he took in the library and its vast array of books, felt the smooth, well-polished surface of Aklon's desk, and adjusted his seat so that it sat just right. Arranging the broad candles to provide the best light, he focused his will and opened it. The book wailed, its terrible, despairing cry, sucking his attention in from the very first word. Written in a long-forgotten tongue, he somehow understood it as if it was his own. The first few pages were merely the lament of its author over his lost beloved, and then the diary of his journey, seeking out the very being that many felt existed, but few dared encounter. Arcanus had traveled the globe as he knew it in those bygone days, from ancient Dagon to the volcanic peaks of Halhera. Every shaman, wizard, and wise man became the objects of his quest, his grail, to be reunited with his soulmate, either alive or dead, it did not matter, but he would never allow their fate to be left to chance. Never could he willingly grant their future to the fates. His search was so complete that it was not he who discovered him, but death who descried him. Do not meddle with me, mortal, the horrific one commanded. One can have but what the fates have woven. Join your bride, thy heart's desire you may try, but not while ye breathe as a living man. A pact then, O death, Arcanus desperately replied, for I know not if my beloved lies now with you or in some other place. What was her birth name? The secret name that her parents hid from the demons that come for firstborns. Mary, Arcanus said, second daughter of Culain, son of Sean. Clasping the edge of his ragged cloak, Death raised his bony hand, thus hiding his calamitous face. Hissing, "My-ree," he croaked, and muttered in 1,000 different tongues, seeming to look right and left, up and down, within, as if he was annoyed beyond his limits. He slowly lowered his hand. "Ha!" Death asserted. "'Tis true that she was with me in blessed stillness, but only for a little while." "Then where has she gone? Elysium or Hades, I know not where. Only the wretched who believe not in anything stays with me. Was her spirit good or ill? She was as good as the Earth Mother herself. And what faith did she follow? In life she was a healer. She prayed to Diansect. Thief of the dead, Death rasped in rage. Reanimator, king of resurrection. If she is with him, I can help you not." Then you are the one known as Aran. And the footnote is about the Grail. The Holy Grail. Okay. 66. I have many names. Some in this world use that, but my own father had another name for me. Then I have failed, Arcanus cried. I will die of a shattered heart. Death, always so cold and pitiless, yet ultimately merciful, placed his fleshless hand upon the arm of Arcanus, and where ancient bones and mortal body met, flames erupted, and a terrible wound like a brand rose up. Arcanus screamed, but welcomed the sensation like a lunatic, believing that he would soon be without the pain that consumed him from within. A gift I have given thee, Aran instructed, but not the gift that you so desperately seek. Truly, I know not where your beloved soul now lies, other than that it does not rest with me, and yet some clues may be found in my realm by he who seeks purest gold. With my mark, the doorway is open. I will show you. Opening his wretched robe, at heart no greater dark, he enveloped Arcanus. Standing alone, he looked out, as if seeing truly for the first time. Seeming like a child far from his mother's arms, he stood alone in a desolate landscape. Beneath his feet lay a rolling plain of lifeless sand, and in the distance a twilight ocean, with an island barely visible from a shore. Above him raced only dense wavy clouds of eternal gray. There were no stars nor sun, and yet it was neither dark nor light, but something in between. Aran, he called, but death did not answer. Am I dead then? He wondered. He could still feel. His heart seemed to beat inside of his breast. Loneliness, that cursed pain, remained. Falling to his knees, he struggled with his own wretchedness. Grasping his wounded arm, he cried out, both in pain and at the sudden realization of his extraordinary gift. He saw the universe in a way that no mortal had ever before seen it. He saw how the planes of existence, all so different, coexisted and overlapped, and how this realm was a part of them all. Somewhere out there, the spirit of his greatest love awaited his return. With his newly acquired knowledge, he could come and go from this land, as well as travel to an infinite number of others at will. Aran had given him godlike power. He would never stop searching, not until he found her. Reading on, Derek was amazed to find the key to death's doorways, penned by Arcanus in his very own blood. To ye who dare follow in my path, I leave you the same gift that death left to me. Perhaps, fate's willing, our paths will one day cross. Always remember that we walk in his land, ever unwelcome until our time is come. Farewell. Vol's principle of planar travel involved manipulating the vibrating frequencies of matter, thereby shifting instantaneously from one realm to the next. Hardly a simple formula, the equation that Arcanus had received was beyond genius. It was divine. Even as Derek's eyes read it, slowly comprehending its meaning, he realized that its divine power was wholly unintended for a mortal's use. It was a cursed inspiration, a dreadful knowledge that could never again be unknown. The burden was now his to bear. Arcanus had meticulously recorded the formula for entering that dreadful plane, and illustrated a diagram depicting the myriad of other worlds that it touched. With this knowledge, Derek knew that he could finish Aklon's work. He could enchant the mirrors with Vol's spells and create doorways between worlds. It was then that Derek heard Aran's whisper, and though his will was strong, he listened. The vellum itself was so perilous, its knowledge so forbidden, that death took notice of every hand that dared to open it. Derek, death beckoned, join me. Open the doorway. Find eternal peace by my side. Master, Wraith called, shaking him. Dawn is risen. Chilled to the bone, death's echoing voice lingered within his mind. Filled with a terrible urge to urinate, Derek ran for the latrine. Shaking with emotion, he knew what he had to do, and he could not wait to begin. "Well done, Wraith," he praised from the hall. "One more second, and I'd have been done in." Everything that he needed to complete the spider mirrors was here, and with all the information at his disposal, he would add a few features that were entirely his own invention. The priceless mirrors that Acklon had obtained were huge and far too large to be portable in any meaningful way. He believed that the answer to the problem existed in Breel A. Nimby's compilation of sorcery, written 5 centuries earlier by a now extinct order of wizardry. Within its pages, spells capable of commanding the elements, forging enchanted weapons of various metals, and commanding matter itself to change form abided. All that he wanted was a simple way to shrink the mirrors down into a portable, practical size. After an entire day of reading, he found the answer to his problem on page 378, under the heading Molecular Compression and Expansion, the Universal Limits. There was, listed there, a single very powerful spell that would force whatever matter it was cast upon to either shrink to its tiniest limits or expand to many times its normal size. Derek assembled the necessary components, traced the runes with his hands, and commanded his bedroom chair to shrink. It vanished before his very eyes. Looking closer, he saw that it still stood where it had been, only now it was no more than 4 inches in height. The true test of the spell remained. Could he reverse its effects? He surmised that the transposition of the former incantation would result in the opposite effect, but no such spell existed in the book. He tried it from memory, commanding the very fabric of the chair's reality to expand to its original orientation, and lo and behold, it returned to its former size. However, would it work on Acklon's mirrors? These were objects that were already magic-rich, a state that made additional enchantments unpredictable at best. Moreover, would the spell's duration last indefinitely, or could it end disastrously at a time of its own choosing? He had no choice but to test it on one of them. To cast such an enchantment could result in a wild surge of energy, powerful enough to destroy him. He had no choice. Sitting in his stepfather's chair, the only father that he had ever known, he disappeared. Okay, we'll end it there, and we'll start up again on the page, top of page 69, and we'll see if our hero, Acklon Lucharon, is alive or dead. Tune in next time. Have a great night. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.